Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com video presentation. Debate physics also. But the debate is in just such a horrid form where nobody, none of the people I'm attempting to interact and debate with will address a single point actually made in any of these videos. Instead, they just malign anything stated as garbage and address none of the points. This really is pathetic. Alright, so I believe I'll deal with a couple of subjects. So first I'll just do an example of an experiment that physicist Michael is supposed to be doing, but he never gets around to, apparently. But anyway, he just keeps making these videos with this implication that they're somehow scientist, his category of human being, is doing some sort of disciplined, thoughtful work in the world, that they're looking for the truth and they're proving the truth, and everybody else is just doing some intuition thing and they're really not thinking about it and some kind of crap like that and drawing raw conclusions. And so in the last video he defended a part of physics that's as dumb as the wrong assignment of plus and minus. I mean, look, they didn't change it because it would require them to redo all of Maxwell's equations and change a whole bunch of stuff, and they really don't want to do it because they have to change all the books and they have to change everything. You know, if they change plus and minus, it's going to really make it very difficult. So they're leaving it broken. Just a fact. And the fact is them claiming, that work is about how much something moves that you can see. That is movement you can see. But any movement you don't see, that's not really work. So when something's going vibrating back and forth at a rate that's too fast for you to perceive, there's no work being done. When that's just silly. And the real point is that whether or not gravity is a time-dependent force. So I can use lots of examples to point out. I mean, this would be your intuition, right? I have a flame, and I stick my hand in the flame. Well, what's going to decide how burned I get? How much distance I travel in the flame, or how long my hand is in the flame? How much fire hits my hand, right? And what's going to decide how fried the hand gets in the flame? And again, I've used paint sprayer analogy, lots of analogies to explain that obviously gravity is behaving exactly like that. They know it's a constant force. They use the word constant force. What do you think constant force means? Your intuition should say, well, that means the light's always on. It means there's photons always coming out of it. Or paint. It's a paint sprayer and it's always on. And I'm going to travel from point A to point B, across this field of spray. That's what's happening. I mean, it's that obvious. And so what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, how much paint gets on me is going to be dependent on time. This distance isn't going to make any difference. It's how much time I spend doing it. And the same is true if I'm going to hold something against gravity. Now it gets a little bit more complicated when you talk about holding, some sort of mass, and you're going to hold it. And you can sort of understand that ideally it'd be really nice if you were some sort of rigid thing and you could just take the weight here, make it go all the way here, just push into the gravity, and the gravity will push back, the ground will push back up and let it do all the work and you don't do any. But that doesn't happen anywhere in the real world. And the fact is, even if I made this out of steel, even if I made this a steel rod, the steel is still being stressed. And we would know it if they took like clear lucite or plastic. You can see the stress. And so you could see that when you place the weight on the gizmo, there would be stress, that they'd get all kinds of little colors would happen, all kinds of bending and twisting in the material, because it would be working, frankly. It would have to transfer this gravitational force hitting the weight, and it would have to transfer that through this is a friction. It's stopping it from moving, so it's collecting all of the force. It's not allowing the force to move the mass. But the mass is still moving. That is the catch. And our problem, when we're holding something, our problem is we can't adjust our frequency to be just right with the gravitational force. At any millisecond, there's a little more gravity hits. The next millisecond, a little less, a little more, a little less. It's like the paint sprayer, right? It's not perfectly consistent. It's consistent over a range of time, but if I make the time really tiny, it's not consistent anymore. There's seconds where I'm getting a little more gravity, a little less gravity. So it is oscillating, and the problem is we can't oscillate at the same frequency. So things start to go like this. And so when we're holding the weight, we are not holding the weight. Okay? We're making a mess out of it. We're doing more work because we're pushing too high, then we're free falling and not doing any work, and then all of a sudden we're doing work again. So we're turning it on and off and on and off and jiggling. And the bottom line is, though, it's all eventually going to go into the ground. Okay, but we're going to just make more work out of it. So if you lift a weight slowly versus lifting a weight. So they haven't responded to this in any kind of rational way. I mean, it's just an absolute fact. If I lift this in 2 seconds, okay, 50 pounds, let's say, I'm done, okay? I did a certain amount of work. You can feel how much work it is. And we know that if I take 2 hours, okay, and lift it slowly, holding it against gravity the whole time, then I'm going to be doing a lot of work. I'm going to burn zillions of calories. Now, he makes a video, this physics doctor makes a video defending that as no work, saying your intuition is somehow fooling you. It's like saying when my hand's in the flame and it's burning my flesh and it's turning into blisters, that somehow my intuition is fooling me. I'm not really getting burnt. I mean, it's too ridiculous an argument. It's such a bad segment of physics to defend. So they know it's a constant force. Constant, okay? And it's always pushing down. They know the ground is always pushing back up. All right, so why is there even any argument about this? That the nature of the force, the field that we're in, the nature of it is exactly as stated. How long you are in it decides how much energy you're going to collect in it. So if you're free falling from 4 times the height, but it only takes twice the time because of something Galileo figured out, 300 years ago. Okay, you have this 1, 3, 5, 7. That's the reality. So yeah, it's 4 times the distance, but it's only twice the time. That the gravity, the constant force, only had twice the time to push on it. So obviously you can only give it twice the force. And the end result is that it turns out exactly that way, because guess what? It's going to weigh twice as much. So this isn't even close to a viable argument on their side. I mean, they're just arguing absolute nonsense and defending it. You're saying, what the hell is wrong with these people? All right, so the experiment that he's supposed to do, so I'll illustrate it in another way of illustrating how ridiculous what they claim is true. So you have a Newton's cradle, and let's say I have 3 little balls here, and I'm going to crash the 1 into the 3. Okay, what happens? Well, I think we all know what happens. I'll do the what happens in another color just for fun. Okay, we know that what happens is this one flies off with exactly what went in. So if let's just say we'll just use velocity. If 10 velocity goes in, okay, 10 velocity comes out in the one object. So this one object flies out here, okay. And it's the same momentum. If it's 100 momentum in, you get almost, 99% of that back. Okay, coming back out. Now, their argument is if I glue these balls together, right, I couldn't just weld them, it doesn't matter. Then all of a sudden, the whole experiment changes, and now I put 100 in, okay, so that's it, 100 momentum's in. I hit the 3 balls, and guess what they do? They leave, all right, with half the velocity of the original thing, all right, and which means they have 150 momentum. So somehow, by just gluing them together, I'm going to increase the momentum that will be transferred. That's their theory. Plus, I'm going to get this bonus. I'm going to get this ball back. And this one's coming back, okay? I'm going to get 50, okay? half the momentum is going to come back this way. So now I have a total of 200 momentum. And all I did was glue these together. That's the big secret. So somehow I get twice the momentum out of the system by just gluing these little balls together. That's their theory of how reality works. So that's a viable theory. And then it comes back together. The weird part is that this swings out here, right? The 3 balls swing out here. And then when they come back together, right? When these two things come back together again, somehow only 1 ball pops out this side. And the 3 stay right here. Okay. All right. So the 150 goes in this way. 150 here, right? And you have 50 coming in this way. And you only get 100 back out. And they say I'm an asshole, I'm a intuitional fool, I'm a dupe, I'm some sort of moron, because I look at that and I say, fuck you. What are you talking about? Show me. Okay? No chance. All right. Just literally no chance. And you can see it right here, right? They're saying this is 1/2 the velocity. I mean, the good thing is they both leave with the same velocity, right? So this side is supposed to be half the velocity and this side half the velocity. And of course, if you cut that to 1/4 of the velocity, then it makes perfectly good sense. 3 times 1/4 is 3/4, right? And 1 times 1/4 is 1/4, right? And that adds up to 1. So clearly it's 1/4 the initial velocity. But really, they will insult people, call them all kinds of names, make all kinds of exaggerated statements about what imbeciles these people must be. How could they be so duped and not actually believe our free momentum theories? I mean, it's just amazing. And then they talk like this is about intuition. No, this is about honesty. Okay, the fact is that bad jurors are made out of dishonest people, not honest people making intuitional mistakes. It is dishonesty. They are trying to find any reason at all to believe in nonsense. If you put the theory of God on actual trial, okay, it can't win. It's a bad theory. It's a nonsense theory. And the only reason why it survives the trial is because the jurors are corrupt. The people doing the analysis, doing the thinking, okay, are not thinking honestly. I mean, again, the honest statements are that this science never was cleaned up. It was never confirmed. They didn't do any experiments. Leibniz claimed 4 pounds dropping 1 foot was the same as 1 pound dropping 4 feet. He never did the experiment. I mean, honestly. I mean, he might have saw somebody do it with pulleys or in some other kind of strange way, but he never saw it done plainly by just dropping the objects. And then they had the Deschardelet clay experiments, denting clay with round objects, and they're expecting a linear, a straight line answer when they're using a curved surface. I mean, they couldn't even do that much thinking. Really poor science, really poor theory. I mean, she dropped objects into sand and said, well, we're going to decide how much energy it has based on how far a piece of sand goes. Not how much sand is moved. No, how far one piece of sand goes. So obviously things with a higher velocity can give the little pieces of sand higher velocity. So yes, they go further. It's not moving more sand. It's just moving the sand, the few sand pieces it hits, faster. That's all. Faster things can give faster velocity. That's not too hard to figure out. And slow things can only give slow velocities. Gee, is that intuition again failing? Yeah, too stupid. So again, none of the arguments, the hundreds of arguments I've made, are ever addressed. Again, the Eddington experiment, the importance of doing a image, distorting an image, because that sort of proves it has to be a consistent force. It can't be scatter. It can't be any other. There's no other way the image could be bent than it has to be bent by an actual force. because there's no physical mechanism that can bend the image, short of something we build on purpose, like a prism. So just nonsense. It just, and their rhetoric is just so obnoxious. So we'll read some comments. Then the Mindless Marbles has put up some post claiming that they're, all this is so egregious that people would say, in his video, he's basically trying to malign intuition. And then he uses as an example the idea that when we sit there and hold something against gravity, that we are technically not doing any work because we don't see anything moving. When clearly the argument could be made, well, what if we're doing this constantly? Is that work? If we're doing this constantly, is that work? There's no weight. It's just my hand. If I do this constantly, am I doing work? Of course I'm doing work. And that's the real point. The point is, if I could make it rigid, we couldn't use up any of the energy. It would just run through the mechanism. The mechanism would say, there's weight on my hand. I put the weight on my hand, it goes through my body into the ground. And then the ground pushes back up, and the push back up goes right through me also. And so, yeah, I technically wouldn't be doing any work. But that's not what human beings are. And frankly, that's not the thought experiment in terms of recognizing what constitutes work. Because the fact is, there's a lot of work being done. Electricity going back and forth through a wire is work. Now, if it's nice and circular, then it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't get used up. But let's not pretend it's not active energy. It's just waiting to get out. You can argue. All right, we'll pause and just read some crap, I guess. I just, but the subject really is about just how dishonest these people are. Again, they know it doesn't take 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast. They know that isn't true. They know something going 10 times as fast doesn't do 100 times the damage. They know these things don't happen. And they're just playing this game. I mean, let me do the bullet and the gun one again, just for the hell of it, because it's, again, it just so illustrates the bullshit. Let's say I wanted to test how much energy explosions make. All right, so I can take I could do 2 tests. Okay, I do one test with, very light bullets. Okay, so they're going to weigh, let's just say, 1 gram. And then I'm going to do the same test with heavy bullets that weigh 1 kilogram. Okay, so it's 1,000 times difference. All right, in their weights. All right, and let's just say the velocity is a number, and so we can calculate the joules of energy, okay, and the momentum. So we have a velocity. So let's just, I don't really want to get into that much detail. Look, the point will be is the light bulb. So we have the same exact explosion. And let's just say we calculate, all right, and the fact is that kinetic energy, the kinetic energy theory, will say these bullets have 1,000 joules of energy and 1,000 joules of energy. And the fact is it'll say that these only have 1. Okay, so 1 J and 1 J. So this explosion creates 2 joules of energy by their theory, and this explosion creates 2,000 joules. So if I was doing this to test how much power the explosion has, so which one should I believe? Which one's the truth? Which one's really telling me how much energy the explosive has? Now the momentums are going to be exactly the same, okay? It's going to be whatever, 500 and 500. There's not going to be any difference in the momentum. So if I use momentum, I can get one number for the power of this explosion. But if I use kinetic energy, I'm going to get numbers that are just insanely differential. 2 versus 2,000. Which experiment is more legitimate? Which one's the truth? I mean, it just illustrates how silly their theory is. That somehow the explosion doesn't work when I put the heavier bullets in. It doesn't work. Yeah. And their whole theory is that it's harder to push light things. It's harder to take a force and apply it to a light thing. But I guess the catch is the size of the force, right? If I have see, explosions create little tiny, tiny, tiny bits of energy, little tiny pieces of matter, little single atoms go flying into something and hit something. So it's a very small particulate hitting a very large object. So I suppose they could make something out of that. But isn't that pretty thin? You know, a pretty thin argument to rely on. All right. But they won't respond to any of this and say, no, it doesn't happen that way. That's not the truth. Just like, again, I could bring up the Mythbusters. They crashed the car. You're just saying it's some sort of coincidence. That the car has a crush factor that turns out to make it look exactly like momentum is perfectly conserved when actually kinetic energy is being perfectly conserved, right? So the 50 mile an hour car crashes this much, the 100 mile an hour crash is exactly twice as much crushing. Not anywhere near 4 times as much, just twice. Yeah. And again, they'll be so obnoxious to say anybody who finds fault with their physics. They never redid that Eddington experiment, never did it. 400 times better resolution from space. You can use Jupiter. You don't need an eclipse. It takes 5 minutes. It's a $500 experiment, frankly. You could probably do it for 50, but I'm just saying, even if you wasted some money, what could it cost? It's nothing. 5 minutes of satellite time. I mean, it's just a nonsense that hasn't been repeated. And they won't even admit that's bad science. They won't say the words. It's bad science that they haven't done these pendulum experiments. They haven't done these explosion experiments. They haven't done any of these experiments. They got nothing. They haven't done anything but a couple of little air cart experiments. And that's it. Nothing. And these people are so dishonest that they won't admit, that's bad science. Good science is more experiments, not less experiments. Good science is, if you're going to make a claim, prove it. Take lots of pictures, do lots of ways of fiddling with it, mess with it, all kinds of ways to see if you can make it not work. Do all of that. That's good science. We know what good science looks like. Good science should be agreed that everybody should be able to say it, but they can't even say that. They can't even agree on what good science is, which is collect a ton of data, do a ton of experiments. They've done the barest minimum. You know it. It's just such bullshit. They got these extra LIGO things that are supposed to be online now, right? They got like 3 or 4 of them. Do we hear anything about gravitational waves anymore? Oh, yeah. All of a sudden, it's not showing up. All of a sudden, maybe they're not finding any of this stuff because one machine isn't agreeing with the other machines. They're all not finding it. They're all not seeing. All the telescopes aren't seeing. Even though they're looking the same place, the telescopes aren't seeing the same thing. That might indicate there's a problem with your theory. Ugh, God, I hate this planet. Well, that was unfortunate. Hit the wrong button anyway. You have to stitch the videos together. Anyway, so this is MindlessMarbles. So we bothered making a post. He hasn't made a post in like a month, I don't know. And there's nothing going to be here. He's not going to make any counter arguments on the physics, and he's just going to spew these stupid insults. And you're saying, well, what the hell's wrong with you? I mean, can't you see that these arguments are valid? That if I make this argument about sticking my hand in a fire, that yes, my hand's going to get burnt based on how long it's in the fire, and that it wouldn't be totally unreasonable to say because the gravity is a constant flame, so to speak, it's a constant force differential, that time might have a lot to do with how much I'm going to be moved by the gravity, how much force the gravity can apply, how much it can blister me. That's not reasonable? Fucking people. You people are just such pieces of shit. Alright, if DraftScience fans represented humanity, then humanity would be fucked beyond any hope. That's exactly our argument to you. That's why the world is a sack of shit, is because morons like you exist, okay, and propagate your dishonesty. Again, you're so fucking dishonest to defend this shitty physics. This unevidenced shit physics. You know they lie about the detectors on the photon experiment. You know that's a lie. You know that shit never took place. There was never detectors put on either side of this slit. None of that shit ever happened. And you defend it. You're such a piece of human garbage. Alright. The stupidity and myopic ignorance is unfathomably depressing. Yes, that's exactly my statements I've already made. That's why I hate this planet, is because scum like you can spout this ignorant, stupid, fucktarded crap and defend of absolute shit. And you're pretending you're not some sort of a Muslim. You're obviously some sort of Muslim. You're some sort of kook fanatic. Okay, who can't be at all reasonable. You can't use any logic or judgment, and you clearly prove it because you never argue any of the facts. You just argue the person's character. Constantly. Never come close to arguing the actual subject. You can't draw a picture, you can't talk, you can't do a motherfucking thing except be a fanatic spewer of barf. Fucking garbage. Physicist Michael made an entire video that was a piece of steaming shit, okay, trying to malign all other thinkers except his own little club, as if they are making some sort of mistake because they don't see how it's clearly the negative pole of the battery is clearly negative. There's clearly less electrons. Clearly. Yeah. And they're being fooled by their intuition. Too silly. Dedicated to the dangers of using gut reaction intuition. So again, this isn't even a real subject. It's not a subject. It wasn't gut reaction intuition that the OJ trial, when they fucking made that insane decision. That wasn't their broken intuition. They were corrupt going in. They had every intention of saying, fuck you, Whitey. That was what their agenda was. And you having a fucking agenda. I don't know whether it is some sort of God theory or some sort of spiritualism, or you think you're some kind of shapeshifter. It's some sort of crystal fucking believing nonsense. And you need this bullshit to be true. Two statements that might sound off are strange. So again, there's absolutely nothing strange about somebody recognizing when they're holding 50 pounds, I am apparently doing work. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that intuition, okay? They've actually correctly judged the circumstance and recognized an absolute fact that they are doing work. Now, you can say they're doing unnecessary work because they're just too jittery. If they stop being jittery, okay, and felt at one with the gravity, if they rubbed their crystal and then they were at one with the gravitational force, then maybe they wouldn't have to do any work. But, yeah, they're not. So the fact is they're in conflict with it and therefore herky-jerking all over the place. And they're doing a lot of work. And it's just a fact that they are doing work. It's not a fake fact. It's not a phony fact. It's an absolute fucking true fact that they're doing work. Okay. There are plenty of things that can sound like they don't make sense, such as Simpsons what is this? Cartoon paradox, the cartoon paradox, the finger up my ass paradox, the I just stuck it in my nose after I stuck it in my ass paradox. This little bullshit, this Dylan Krager, did you take your medications today? Oh, man, it's just this so 1942 internet. Will you fucking try to grow up? How short are you? Okay. Even heliocentrism if you lived in the 15th century. So obviously any of the smart people already figured out the world wasn't flat back then. I mean, they could figure it out. The entire point of the video was, hey, maybe don't make quick dismissals. No, that wasn't the entire point of the video. The whole entire point of the video was in what he argued for the last 10 minutes, which was somehow, look, you could think you're doing work when you're holding 50 pounds, but you're really not because physics says so. Physics says so. Physics says so. That's what he did. He used one of the worst statements of physics, which is gravity is about distance. Okay, it's one of the stupidest conclusions. As I pointed out, it's a constant force. Clue, that's a giant clue. Constant force, that's like a perpetual flame. Okay, and what are you doing when you're free falling in it? You're collecting it. Oh man, how fucking stupid. Don't make sense at first sight. Our hearing would try to give a proposition some thought. So again, is the thought that you people have given any of this? Again, even the arguments where they claim you don't have to redo the Eddington experiment because we did an experiment with radio waves, or we did an experiment with microwaves. That image data is the same as not image data. That somehow you're not even doing a little bit of extra thought. You haven't given it any extra thought to recognize how significant the Eddington experiment would be in terms of a proof. That it's a substantially substantially more indestructible as a piece of evidence, because you can't just claim it's scatter. Okay, the response by DraftScience and his commenters, question mark, completely ignore the entire message. No, we completely got the message. You're the one obviously not getting the message, that he was just taking another shot at anyone who doesn't believe what he believes. And that's all he was doing. He was just insulting the intelligence of any person who doesn't believe in his religion. All right. And the substance of the video, and proceed to trash statements that offend their sensibilities. Again, it is such a preposterous lie for these assholes who have no evidence in support of their theory, right? He can't show me it taking 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast. He can't show me it taking 9 times the fuel to go 3 times as fast. He can't show any of this crap. And this fucker sits there and pretends, well, we've proven it. And if you don't believe it, it's because you're broken. You have broken thinking mechanisms and don't know how to think longer about it. Because the longer you think about how there's no evidence, you realize we don't need evidence. Is that his argument? Because that's completely what he's saying, that science is about not needing evidence. They can draw conclusions and they don't need any fucking They don't need any fucking evidence. What do you have? Stinking evidence? We don't need no stinking evidence. That's their physics. Oh, amazing. At 22 minutes and 30 seconds. Oh, it's just amazing. He uses the example of having your arm keeping a weight in place. He explicitly says that you are getting tired and you clearly are exerting effort and exerting chemical energy in your muscles. Yes, exactly. But you're being fooled because you really aren't doing any extra work. Despite this, Physics Michael claims no work is being done of the hanging weight. So he says of the hanging weight. So he obviously wrote a key sentence poorly. So I guess he meant on the hanging weight. Well, obviously you're doing work on it. Obviously you're preventing it from falling. You're collecting all of its gravitational energy. So all the energy that sail, all the wind that's blowing, the gravitational wind that's blowing on that weight, you're getting the brunt of it. No doubt about it. And it has to go through you to get to the ground. And the fact is the more inefficiently you do that, that is the sloppier you resist that weight, the more work you can end up doing. Can you imagine how much more work it would be if I'm holding the 50 pounds, and I rigid up my body and tighten everything, versus I hold it further out and I start wobbling it. I mean, obviously a gigantic increase in the amount of work I'm going to be doing. All right. So just amazing. So he's conceding the whole point right there. He's basically saying physicist Michael basically defends an argument by physics that's retarded. That in spite of every piece of evidence, okay, that and a provable, observable fact. So it's a provable fact that you're doing work. Okay? That's a proven fact. And he's saying that's your broken intuition. That proven fact is not true. He didn't say, oh, there's an explanation for why you're doing more work. No. He said you're just not. Because the weight isn't moving. We can't see it moving. So therefore it's not moving. I just so bad. Now DraftScience response at 48:55. You don't need to know my name, you fucking cunt. You know, you really don't. How come he's physicist Michael? Why don't you call him Dr. Coop? Huh? Why not? Michael, Dr. Michael. We don't have any familiarity, motherfucking piece of human shit garbage. You coward. You sit there and you won't even, no videos, no voice, no nothing, no name, no nothing. You little fucking coward, and you're going to use somebody else's name? You fucking piece of shit. Alright, doesn't even let physicist Michael finish his point and interjects with a complete straw man. Yeah, the straw man is the counter argument, which is, wow, physics really is stupid. They know it's a constant force, and yet they don't think time has anything to do with it. Time doesn't say, stick your hand in a flame, and time doesn't have anything to do with how burnt it gets. You should know from your physics there's no reason for you to get tired according to your physics because there's zero energy being expended. That's what your theory says. Right, I'm mocking it. I'm mocking the very idea that this is what he's defending. And we absolutely know you're doing work. There's just no denying it's more work if I lift a 100-pound weight slowly. I'll do more work. It's just an undeniable fact. And the faster I can lift it, the less work I'll do for the distance I lifted it. Just an absolute fact. Alright, and it's a fact that NASA has to use all the time getting into space and getting out of space. It has to use this dynamic all the time. All this time, this is a real thing it has to deal with. Alright, he is in commenters, bass and bass hand, superior mind, do not even bother trying to understand the claims in the original video. They are basically conceding, they perfectly understand that, gee, physics really is full of shit. I can't believe this moron, this doctor of physics would bring up a subject that frankly all the physicists should just run away from and avoid because it's so stupid. The claim they're making is so fucking stupid. Alright. And then he repeats the same sentence here, I guess. The two commenters do not want to even bother trying to understand what is being said. They merely want to outrage porn to feel superior. I don't even know what that means. Obviously, superior mind's calling himself superior mind. I mean, so I guess he does feel superior. Yeah. Is that a wrong connection to make? That there might be some connection between the fact that he calls himself superior mind and he might have a sense that you're a moron? Yeah, and he's not. Oh, that's so perfect. I seriously don't understand how some people can have that bad of an epistemology. So again, where is your facts? Where is all of your proof? Again, why don't you just show me it taking 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast? Just show me that experiment and the argument's over. All right. By no exaggeration, this epistemology is like that of climate change deniers. So again, where's the parallel? Exactly. I mean, exactly where's the parallel? I mean, there's all kinds of evidence of the climate argument. I mean, even just using my crude argument, okay, that just kind of finishes the job. I mean, obviously the crap in the ground is carbon and dirty. Obviously, the living biosphere put it in the ground, okay? So it took it out of the atmosphere. So it obviously got colder because it took it out of the atmosphere. It was warm. That's why there was all this stuff living. It only partially decomposed. It got shoved underground and sequestered a bunch of carbon. And then we have taken half of that crap, the oil anyway, some percentage of it anyway, and thrown it back into the atmosphere, all right, all at once. Okay, it went into the ground really slowly, and we're putting it back all at once. Yeah, that's probably going to fuck up the environment a little bit. It's probably going to get a little bit warmer. Are people who think vaccines inject microchips. So I don't even know what person would sit there and say, vaccines are microchips. Those are what? How many? 17 people on Earth? Oh, you're such a despicable shit. But I mean, this is so common, right? Professor Lewin had a nice, disciplined, passionate electrician tell him, you probably did your experiment wrong because there can't be two voltages in the same place, moron. And what did Professor Lewin's great argument, his great counter argument? You're as dumb as a flat earther. That's the best you can do? You're pathetic. You can't make a counter argument of some kind? Okay, I had the displeasure of interacting with both, and the level of impenetrable pig-headedness really does seem similar. So again, he interacted with them and did what? They said, please show me your evidence, and you don't have any. Is that what happened? Yes, that's what happens. It's like no communication is happening whatsoever. There's only one thing to communicate with, and that's facts. And you don't have any, and you just keep complaining, keep contending you do. And it's just such a lie that you have all kinds of big pile of evidence. Where's your evidence? I mean, I saw an Eddington video the other day. And I'm going to play, somebody talking about the thing, and he does the whole Eddington thing. He never points out that Eddington said in his own journal, I wouldn't stake my life on these results. He doesn't point out that Eddington points out in his own journal that he got 10% of the quality of data. 10%! Gigantic! 90% failure in terms of being able to collect the essential evidence. A 90% degrade in the evidence. And that deserves a New York Times headline that says Einstein proven right. So he just copies their comments. So let's see. Another ironic thing is that Gary's initial interjection, which was false and a straw man, so he's not even going to quote whatever this initial interjection was so quick it most likely have been a gut-wrenching response without much thought or consideration made. This is extremely ironic. Sad that no one except me at the moment is calling it out, however. What the fuck is he talking about? So anyway, I think it was one of the best videos I've made in a while, just because it goes through all of these arguments, and it does it quite quickly and quite concisely. So let's play the video and see what the fuck this moron could possibly be talking about. What the hell was wrong with my initial all I did initially was say, look, let's not play the first half of this moronic video because it's just a bunch of gibberish. And this whole subject of blaming intuition when clearly it's not intuition that's the problem, it's corruption. It's the fact that MindlessMarbles is a liar. He's dishonest. Again, you have to be completely dishonest not to admit that NASA should do the Eddington experiment. That's just being completely dishonest. That good scientist would do the experiment with 400 times better resolution. It only takes 5 minutes. It's an insanely inexpensive experiment to do. There's absolutely no good fucking reason that we've been in space for 50 goddamn years and you haven't redone this critical experiment under these supremely better conditions. Clearly, you're not going to get 10% of the data quality. Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com video presentation. Debate physics also, and it's debating anything, right? It's what's the rules of reasonable trying of a statement or a story or anything. So I'm just saying, yeah, so that was the subject. The subject really is, can we judge each other's reasonableness? Okay, and the point simply being made is I'm saying you are convicted of being completely unreasonable if you won't admit the evidence pool is too dry. The evidence pool should be the water level in the evidence pool should be a lot fucking higher before you decide you've proven anything or you've convicted the defendant. All right, and that statement, the very fact that you will not agree with me that science has way dropped the ball in terms of doing any of this elemental science, any of this fundamental science. They just couldn't give a shit. They'll spend $10 billion to get marginally better images, from deep space. And they'll spend another $1 billion on, $4 billion on LIGO and whatever they're spending looking for neutrinos, of all dumbass things to waste money on. Fuck you. That you can't utter the words that this is stupid. That they really should prove these elemental facts before they start doing the stuff that's 900 layers higher on top of this swamp. They first ought to make sure the ground isn't a swamp that they're building on. And you know it. There's no way you don't feel it and know that the science is undercooked. You know this is raw, dirty food, and here you are shoving it down the mouths of children and advocating for morons like this physicist Michael Jackass to be sitting there polluting little kids' brains with his nonsense. Fuck you. All right. You can read some comments on this video. Let's see. Oh, yeah, they're just superior mind. Okay. I love to see you actually go on the street and quiz random people about physics. Yeah, well, you'd love lots of things that I wouldn't go anywhere near. And I'm sure there are little round things with little hairs around them and shit. And there's lots of things you'll do that I don't have any interest in, okay? And interacting with human scum isn't one of the things I have any fucking interest in. People suck. That would be I'd rather interrogate them on how deep their suck is. All right, so let's see what else Mindless says here. Let's see. If you think I misunderstood Gary or his commenters, you can't misunderstand because you can't understand. It's clear you can't understand anything because you're such a dishonest, lying sack of weaselly shit. It's beyond your capacity to do anything called understand. Okay, or if you want me to explain what physics Michael was saying, why should you have to explain what he was saying? He said it. He took 40 fucking minutes to make some stupid fucking idiotic video about some distinction between thinking long and thinking short. Well, what should a scientist always be doing? Well, I guess it should be thinking long because there's really no rush. It's not like, you went to the store, you bought ice cream, and the ice cream's going to melt if you don't hurry up. I mean, it's not like physics has to make a rush decision here. You know, what they're going to tell me something is that there's entangled particles. Well, maybe they can take some time and figure it out if there actually is. They don't have to use their intuition, do they? No, they don't. Was saying with the example proposition. I don't know. What do you think he was saying? He was obviously saying somehow, we are doing work, but we're not really doing work. It's work, but it's like work spelled with 2 R's. It's work. It's not work. It's work, not work. Okay. I'm happy to listen to you and explain further. I mean, I want you to explain why every single drawing I make and every single argument I make you ignore. So I want you to explain. I mean, I could go through a list. Maybe I'll make a video just for you and explain all the questions you haven't answered. Okay, and say, why can't you just give me an answer? Do you really think it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast? Really? Is 25 times the electricity to spin a motor 5 times faster? You think that actually happens? Okay, however, I'm not doing this unless explicitly asked to do so because all evidence I have seen shows me that Gary's fans are borderline dishonest. Well, we already know you're a lot worse than borderline, okay? Your dishonesty is so deep. I'm not worth the effort. You're not worth the effort is the point, yes. Unless I'm shown otherwise, I'm not going to waste my effort. So there's no effort here. Obviously, he's made no effort to counter an argument. He hasn't explained in any way whatsoever how the human being holding the weight isn't doing more work. Now, maybe he doesn't have to do more work if he could hold it better. You could say that. Well, if he was holding it better, he wouldn't be doing any more work. You could say that, but that's not what you said. And that's not what he said. All right. So here we go. Bass and Bass. Your work equation is derived by stupid logic. Yes, you're ignorant to the fact that it's clearly a time-dependent force. 9.8 meters per 1 second. Not seconds. Okay, 1 seconds. No, it's 9.8 meters per 1 second. 1 seconds. Not seconds. Not second squared. Not 1 second squared. Okay. Stupid logic, because the weight isn't moving in a distance, there is no work being done. Your physics doesn't take into account that it's about the time you're in the gravity, not distance. So yes, that's the simple enough argument. Physics Michael says he is using force to hold the mass against gravity. So clearly the force is eventually going to get into the ground, and really all you're saying is how badly are you taking the energy from the gravitational energy and transferring it to the ground. And the fact is you're doing it really badly. Just like lifting the weight very slowly is going to be a lot more work. If you take all day to lift your foot and put it on a step, and then you slowly lift your foot and put it on a step, you'll do about 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times more work than if you just walked up the steps. All right. Physicist Michael says he is using force to hold the mass against gravity, but says no work is present. So do we ignore that gravity is a constant force, keywords, probably should put those in capitals or something, pushing down on the mass against his hand? DraftScience uses a great example. If you sit in a chair for a prolonged time, guess what? Yeah, as you know, hey, my ass is sore. I wonder why. Why is it tired? Oh, I guess it's been doing some work. All right. Period. Your ass will get tired eventually because gravity is pushing you down. Like DraftScience says in the video, which you ignore. Work, force, momentum are all the same. Let's see what the reply will be. See if he'll be anywhere near the subject. Oh, he's not going to respond. Isn't that too bad? This Falwell character is so retarded. It's going to be, look, he's got his little icons, his little emoticons. He has to, I mean, he probably, they probably have to cook his food with little smiley faces on it, and, they have to put sprinkles on and stuff. Pathetic. Can you show an example of a physical experiment where the gravity is evidence to be time-dependent force? So here, I mean, I've done it so many times. Isn't it just amazing? Just absolutely amazing. I can give you the example of the lunar module landing on the moon. I can give you the example that I drew hundreds of times, right? You have a gravitational body, you have a point A, a point B, you're going to travel the distance. And the fact is, the faster you travel the distance, the less you're going to get bent. What better example do you need, you fucking lunatic? Oh, amazing. Thanks in advance for the links you can provide. Considering your physics doesn't think so, you aren't going to find great experiments. Well, the fact is, though, that one is one all the physicists will concede. Again, physicist Michael's already conceded the argument because he's already conceded that momentum moves a spaceship. So he's already conceded that this kinetic energy theory shit doesn't work in space. But I have seen videos of cars driving over potholes at different speeds. Yeah, so he brought this up before. And again, it's more just about the weight thing. The more time you have to fall into the hole, the more damage it's going to do to your car. The faster the car drives over the pothole, the less weight the car will register. I'll link the video when I can find some. This is like an ice example I gave to Ian Gosling. And again, why would we have to redo ice experiments? Why should we have to explain to any moron, okay, that the faster you move across thin ice, the less likely you are to fall through it? Why should we have to do that? Am I supposed to believe that Michael Falwell can't understand that argument, that in his whole life experience he doesn't realize that the faster I go across thin ice, the less likely I'm going to crash through it? The faster you go across the ice, the less weight the ice will register because it isn't enough time. So I mean, amazing. Let's be clear here. Weight is your mass and gravity combined. No, weight is a register on a spring. So quit lying again, okay? The whole way we measure weight traditionally is we use a scale and compare two objects, or we use a spring because we know it's a constant, okay? So we can get away with measuring its actual weight. Now we can check the spring by doing it on the other balance scale. So we know the spring is actually working. We know there's an actual law and it works, okay? The spring actually does measure the weight, okay? The force being applied to the object. And we know that we can create exactly the same compression in the spring by just moving something with a velocity into the spring. So again, does that have to be explained to you? Oh, fuck you, liar. That has to be explained, that you don't know that. Providing they both remain the same, weight doesn't change. So again, weight is just a measure of your momentum. That's all it is. Okay, I regard, I regards, I regards to moving across thin ice. The faster you move, the larger the area your weight is distributed for a duration of time. Exactly. So do you understand the time component? You're not over the surface long enough to fall through. Okay. Reducing the pressure on the ice at any given point. Over the entire surface, you can measure it too. It doesn't matter. The entire surface will, from point A to point B, will, yes, you can say it's less pressure all the way across, but it's clearly less total pressure also. So again, liar. A reduction in speed allows your weight to be concentrated on a smaller area for a longer period of time. Done. It wouldn't make any difference. It's more total pressure because it's more total time. Okay, thus increasing the pressure. It's a matter of distributing the force over time and a surface area. So again, why are you saying over time? It's supposed to be over distance. So you just made his argument for him. You just conceded the argument. It's about how much time you have the mass over the surface. All right, as an example, just say you were so we don't need a different example. This example worked just fine. We're in a busy club, dancing away, having fun, and an average sized woman wearing, what the fuck is this? It will hurt a bit. You feel the pressure, new scenario, but the woman is wearing stiletto heels. Again, this isn't about stiletto heels. This isn't about any arguments about how much pressure you're putting per square inch, because it's really just about how much total pressure. So it doesn't matter whether you take it as a net equation or you take it as 1 inch of the ice. It makes absolutely no difference. The only way you can acquire the force is from the time, okay, you give the gravity to apply it. And the faster you go, the less force you will be able to apply. So if you are literally going the speed of light, guess what? Gravity isn't going to bend you. And the fact is you're going to apply zero pressure onto the surface. In regards to cars going over potholes, wheels have sprung suspension, so again, you can't deal with any of the arguments actually made and just has to keep changing the subject. And none of these subjects are evidence of anything but confirming evidence. They are saying exactly the same thing. As the wheel passes over a hole, a given time, the spring will relax and keep contact with the road. Yeah, but we understand that, again, it's not going to change the total amount. All you're saying is what does the ground hits the ground. And the fact that you've stored energy in the spring isn't going to change the fact that the spring can't make energy and it can't take energy away. So frankly, it's just going to change how it distributes the energy on the rough surface, but it's not going to change anything about the total weight. So it doesn't work on the ice example. Obviously, suspensions don't work on flat surfaces. It doesn't have any use. So again, you're just cheating wherever the fuck you can to evade the simple truth. It's a time-dependent constant force. All forces that are constant are time-dependent. Light bulbs, fires, anything that is constantly doing something, okay, is a time-dependent doer. All right. I mean, if I was just throwing knives all day and I was doing it at a constant rate, then it would be a time-dependent action. There would be a certain number of knives flying out of my hand into the world. In regards to cars going over potholes, wheels are sprung. Yeah, you already gave that, right? Yeah. So we're done with this shit. All right. Just too stupid. Dude, what pieces of garbage these people are. Ugh, disgusting. So I guess we should do the stupid intuition comment video, because the Gosling moron makes a point there. So this is, I couldn't even understand MindlessMarbles' comment here. It's just so empty. I think another example regarding work would be to consider the case of placing a compressed spring horizontal inside a box versus placing a person horizontal inside a box who is left to try to push with his legs and arms. So we know that if I do have a compressed spring, something has to stop it from expanding. So something has to be applying a counter force. And that as much as we can say, hey, it's very efficient, that's all we can say, right? If I used a piece of wood, you can understand over time the wood would start to dent. Okay, the spring would literally keep pushing and it would finally win. Especially if it was like humid and, or it was in water, the wood would start to compress and the spring would eventually expand. But if I use hardened steel, I know I can keep that spring compressed for a very long time, but the energy is still moving, is cycling through. There's still stress. So again, are you saying that if I used a piece of plastic, okay, where I can look at it with light and I'll see the colors change, that the colors won't change when the spring's expanded or contracted, that I won't see the stress in the plastic? Of course I'll see the stress. So we know that it's circular, the energy's conserved, it's not escaping, but it's there, still moving. Just like in gravity, it's constant. All right. In one case, the person will get tired, but the spring isn't going to get tired. So obviously, again, it's the same case where you're arguing that when we're pushing, okay, it's completely ineffectual and we have to keep doing it. All right. We're not a spring. We can't just store the pressure and make the pressure keep happening. We have to keep initiating the pressure. All right. In fact, if energy was being expended by the spring, I mean, obviously, if I stretched my whole body and pushed two things, so I'm laying flat and I push two springs on either side, there's a point where, yeah, I can have the energy go right through my spine, and I will be doing very little work. But over time, my spine will get compressed. In fact, the energy being expended by the spring into the box constantly, which is what is doing positive work, would imply, then that means the spring must have some kind of energy source. So again, he's thinking that because electricity moves through a wire, it has to create heat. When the argument is no, it only creates heat because of impurities in the wire. If the wire is really pure, then theoretically the electricity can flow through the wire without creating any heat. Not only is there no evidence of that, but if the energy was real, even if it was just heat that was constantly produced, you could extract it. So again, the argument is that you can do things efficiently or inefficiently. That's the real argument. So clearly a piece of steel can compress a spring very efficiently and none of the energy will be lost. Okay, and if I use my fingers, it'll be very inefficient, because I'm going to keep compensating and trying to maximize. I'm going to keep trying to keep the pressure the same. So I'm going to keep adjusting and adjusting and adjusting, and so I'm going to waste a ton of energy. Perhaps some would think if we had enough boxes containing compressed springs dotted around our homes, there would be no need to put the heating on. So again, nonsense. Nobody suggested that, so just keep lying some more about what other people's theories are when you're the dumb asses, okay, who thinks it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times faster. All right. One thing I find very interesting is a person's faith. Okay, this comment, I already read it. It's just a waste of time. This isn't about faith. It isn't about any of this stuff. It's about fair cop. That's all it's about. There's people who are fair to the facts and people who corruptly manipulate the facts to sell their ideas. So we know the flat earthers are liars and crooks. They don't present the evidence honestly. They ignore every counter argument that's been made, and they just keep making the same arguments over and over again. 9/11 conspiracy theories. We know, okay, they've all been debunked. Okay, all the horse shit is over. They just keep making the argument because they're dishonest. This isn't about fucking intuition. It's about fucking honesty. And the truth is that any asshole who can't say, looking at what physics has done, that they have squandered their resources, okay, and that they have done science a huge disservice by not proving any of these elemental claims. Proving it takes, gravity is twice as bent by gravity. Not only that it's bent, but that it's bent twice as much. When I would argue it's clear it isn't bent. You can't bend a force. Ugh. Okay. As for what science discoveries will make it, okay, that's just physicist Michael placating this mush. Okay. So he doesn't say, let's see, if there evidence, well, I guess I'll read this. I agree with the first point about extremes where we set our levels of confidence in a claim. Made a similar point myself in claims versus evidence video. So again, more crap where he claims his little rickety tiny piece of evidence is gigantic proof. And all of the evidence that's missing, that is the car crashes, the demonstration of it taking 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast, all the evidence that's missing is meaningless. Okay. Let's see. This avoids the all or nothing approach in accepting claims. If there's only weak evidence, then I'll have stronger doubts. So there's absolutely there's no evidence he has any doubts at all about this crap. He's a fucking advocate for this mush and shit. I mean, there's lots of counter evidence you could argue on the subject of what is redshift, the cosmological redshift. What's causing it? Okay, and there could be a clearly rational argument. Well, scatter actually reduces frequency. So wouldn't scatter be a good reason to say, well, maybe the photons are getting a little scattered on their way through those billions of light years. Maybe they're hitting some shit. And maybe that's why it's redshifted. The more distance, the more opportunity to be scattered. Simple explanation, but no, that can't possibly be the truth. This is an expanding universe. That's the truth. If there's stronger evidence, I'll have more confidence. So this is just more baby talk. Oh, well, yeah, sure. That's what all the liars say. Okay, all the corrupt jurors who just want to say, I have an agenda. Okay, I don't care about the truth. I have an agenda. Okay. But not complete confidence. Anyway, subject to revision given new data. So again, his new data. Where's your data? Again, what's the data? The Eddington experiment data sucked. Will you say those words? That 10% of the image quality is shitty data. Will you say those words? Okay, and if there is no evidence, then I do not accept the claim. So again, just more nonsense, because there's obviously no evidence, okay, frankly, that they ever put a photon detector in any experiment. Although this does not mean I accept the negation of the claim just because I am not convinced. So this is the agnostic argument. He can't call himself an atheist. He's too big a fucking fucktard to recognize that some theories are on their face, okay? If there's no evidence, there's no reason to even give it the benefit of anything called a doubt. It hasn't even earned that. Zero evidence means zero. There's nothing there. No reason to benefit of the doubt. All right. So he's basically saying he's not convinced there's no Bigfoot. Okay. So all the other evidence, the evidence that frankly human beings have been everywhere, touched almost every piece of dirt on Earth, and there's absolutely no reason to believe there's some hidden cave somewhere, where old Bigfoot is living. Does that not mean that I'm convinced that there couldn't be some undiscovered primate species? Isn't that just too silly? As for what scientific discoveries will make in the next few centuries would be cool to see, but as an educator, I mean, it's just so disgusting. Educator. My response is, why wait? These discoveries will only happen if we as a society are willing to invest the resources in the silly and preposterous waste of money. Boy, yes, let's build more quantum crapola. Time, money, material, and brain power. Just amazing. You've applied zero brain power to Deschartelets clay experiment. Could you please analyze Deschartelets clay experiment, the credibility of it, you dishonest sack of motherfucking cunt shit? I mean, I'm claiming to you directly, okay? It's stupid. It's illogical. It can't be giving you a correct answer regarding something's energy. It is functionally dysfunctional as an experiment that produces good results. It fools idiots, and you're just basically telling me you're a fucking idiot denting clay with round things to make it happen. So let's get to work. So again, this disgusting, taking no account for how bad their evidence is. 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. That's the first piece of gigantic evidence for mv squared. And the second piece, let's dent clay with round things, okay? Because that'll prove how much linear energy it has. It's a linear line that round things create. Oh, God, they're just so fucking stupid. So Gosling says, very good, Michael. I know of somebody's intuition that has led them to proclaim that the energy recoverable. So here's this is such a, so again, just such a fucking lie. That the energy recoverable by dropping a certain mass from a certain height is different from the energy taken to lift it up to that height. So again, I have been over it and over again. You can make it more work, or you can make it do the most efficient way. The fact is, the most efficient speed to move something to a specific height is to launch it at exactly the same speed it would have landed at from just dropping it. That the gravity is the ideal speed, okay, because it's gravity, right? You're going to fight gravity. You have to fight gravity by its own standards. So the ideal speed in the same gravity is the exact speed it fell with, it hit the ground with. And I launch it at that speed. I have created the most efficient possible way of getting something to a specific height. That's what I've said. And if I do it slower, I'm going to do more work. If they launch rockets by cutting the engines in half, and moving it a lot slower, and they try to spiral up to space, they will use more energy. Fact. All right. I mean, he's just such an asshole. The reason is they say if they lift the mass really slowly, they use a lot more energy than they lift it fast. Yes. And how have you countered that absolute fact? I mean, it's an absolute fact that I can make it more work. It's an absolute fact. I can make it harder to do. I can make it more expensive. I can't make it any cheaper. All right, sounds like hysteresis. The testing physics video I'm putting together for next week. So this is physicist Michael. So it won't be the, 1 mass into 3 mass experiment that he's supposed to be doing. We'll address part of this. So he'll be another live video where he pretends some rickety experiment that isn't really straightforward at all has something to do with proving something. Okay, part of this, looking at misconceptions, common problems with intuition on forces acting on stationary and moving objects. So again, what the fuck would this have to do with anything? I mean, how exactly are you going to change the rules? I mean, the rule is momentum is conserved, or the rule is kinetic energy is conserved. You think he's going to prove kinetic energy? I bet he won't. All right, this is why someone giving reasons is still just another claim until these points are actually demonstrated. So again, why don't you demonstrate it taking 25 times the fuel to make a motor spin 5 times faster? Why don't you show me that evidence? And intuition isn't a demonstration, and your lies aren't either. Okay, your little frickin' rickety car, matchbook car kind of experiments aren't fucking proof either. Alright, you need G to know what the weight is, obviously. So again, it's just momentum. Things hit the ground with momentum. They push on the scale with momentum. Alright, and it always has to go up in an experiment to compensate for the deceleration when the ulterior object like the lever will push down because it has to become G is conserved in an isolated experiment. Well, I don't know. Oh, this is Tyler. Fucking lunatic. Go away. Go find something else to do. Oh, God, it's just... Oh, God. Fucking assholes everywhere. There's just... I can only hope there's an asteroid big enough. Stick in the Earth's asshole. be done with this stinking planet. Anyway, till the next time and such, that's enough. I just can't believe that Mindless Marbles would sit there and double down on just such a stupid fucking video, trying to imply that your intuition is lying to you when you're sitting there sweating, doing some work. And you're sweating, and they're going to tell you you're not working, when clearly you're working. Now, maybe you're working unnecessarily, but it's clear you're working. Fucking idiots. Fuck this planet. Blah, blah, blah. I hate your guts. God damn it, I hate it here. Stupid everywhere.